And so, it's come to this. To close out Smash Bonanza Month, I'm tackling the biggest countdown I've ever done. My 20 all-time favorite fighters in the Super Smash Bros. Series. I've been with the series since it first released on the Nintendo 64, and it has become one of my favorite video game series of all time. And these games wouldn't be what they are without the cast of characters we get to play as. 89 characters from Nintendo's long history and a slew of third-party series outside Nintendo have gotten the chance to participate in this legendary crossover of gaming worlds. So, of these 89 combatants, who were my favorites? Not gonna lie, nostalgia was strong with this list. Nothing left to say, so let the chaos commence. This might come as a surprise to many of you given how much of a fan I am of this character's series, but I don't play Kirby all that much in Smash. In fact, my fondest memories of playing as Kirby in Smash is in the original on N64, which is why he's at the bottom of my list. The only one of the original 12 to make the list, Kirby was the one character in the original game that I played the most. He was definitely the most mobile of the cast, and despite his small stature, he was a pretty powerful character. I especially played Kirby a lot during the time when my N64 system, for some reason, remained at my late grandpa's house, and I played the original Smash with my nephews when we visited. Those were some great memories. By the way, my N64 is back with me now. So yeah, he's pretty much my favorite character in the original Smash. But if I'm such a big fan of the Kirby series, why is it that I don't really play that much of Kirby in the later games? Well, that might be due to the fact that he suffers from the same problem as many of the original 12. The Kirby in Smash Bros. Doesn't exactly feel like Kirby. He feels like an amalgamation of moves from the Kirby series mishmashed together to make something that, while references the series, doesn't quite fully capture the essence of the character. This is especially noticeable in his standard special, Inhale. He's able to copy the standard specials of fighters he inhales, but I feel this move would have better represented Kirby if, instead of copying his opponent's standard specials, he gains the copy abilities from the Kirby series that corresponds to the fighter he inhales. For example, instead of gaining Mario's Fireball when he inhales Mario, Kirby transforms into Fire Kirby and performs a fire ability attack for the standard special. As for others, Spark for Pikachu, Sword for Link, Laser for Rob, you get the picture. I'm not saying that current Kirby in Smash is a bad character per se, but there's so much untapped potential for Kirby that I hope we see in later installments. Until then, I'll always treasure the memories I've had playing him in the original game. Well, would you look at that? Another fighter from a series I really love, who's surprisingly low on the list. I knew just how highly requested Shulk was for Smash 4, but like I said in my top 10 personal games of the decade 2010 to 2019 list, I didn't get into Xenoblade Chronicles until Chugga Conroy started his LP of the original, but by the time that LP dropped, Shulk got revealed for Smash a little bit after, so my hype for wanting Shulk in Smash was relatively short. Even so, Shulk is a very unique addition to Smash. Yeah, he may seem like just another sword fighter, but you see, the Monado is no ordinary sword. First off, that range, especially from the smash attacks and aerial attacks. If you aren't careful, those attacks can get really annoying. Second, it allows Shulk to see into the future with vision, which is just another counter, but definitely one of the cooler looking ones out there. And third, Monado arts. Being able to briefly change your stats and effects at will makes for a very tactical fighter, which is kinda why Shulk is so low on the list. It's not that I hate playing him, otherwise he wouldn't be on the list. But you need to play to the strengths of Monado arts to fully utilize Shulk. You really have to think on your toes and know when to use the correct art at the opportune moment. I mean, I guess you don't need to use Monado arts. Shulk's moves are fine as they are, but using Monado arts is the most optimal way to play Shulk. But even though Shulk can be complicated sometimes, I still like his playstyle even without using Monado arts, and I enjoy playing as him from time to time. Maybe not as much as a certain pair of other Xenoblade Chronicles fighters, but he is the protagonist of one of my favorite games, and I like the character enough to want to play as him, if just on occasion. As the first Xenoblade Chronicles rep in Smash, I think they treated him well, capturing his personality, combat style, and the unique flair of Xenoblade Chronicles. I guess what I'm trying to say is, playing as Shulk, I'm really feeling it. I stand by it, Violet's reveal was by far one of the weakest ever, but that's not stopping me from appreciating just how much fun they are to play as. Yeah, they don't have a mechanic per se like most fighters, their moveset is one of the more traditional movesets out there. And is that so bad? No, Not really. In fact, I think having each of the hero's relics mapped to a directional input was the perfect way of implementing and representing this aspect of 3 houses into a moveset than, say, having Byleth switch between 4 different movesets. I mean, can you imagine how insufferable it would be to keep track of 4 different distinct movesets for one fighter? It would have been a nightmare. Like I said in my favorite Ultimate Newcomers list, Byleth is basically a Swiss Army knife. They've got some kind of tool to handle just about any situation. You want a juggling option? You got it with the neutral air. You want tether recovery? The up special's got you covered. You want a powerful projectile or a strong long-range melee attack? Neutral special, side special, and side smash will get the job done. You want a super beefy attack? All of the down inputs will crush them into next week. With so many gimmicks given to fighters nowadays to make them stand out from the rest of the roster, it's nice to have a fighter like this that's much more straightforward. It was inevitable that a fighter from 3 houses was going to get into Ultimate by obligation to promote a new recent game. And while I wasn't too keen on Byleth's place in the order of fighter releases in Ultimate, you can't deny that Fire Emblem 3 Houses absolutely deserved its place in Smash. This next fighter is a perfect example of a fighter's inclusion in Smash, leading me to try out that fighter's series. I wasn't exactly into the Legend of Zelda series at the time of Brawl's release, but I was at the very least curious. In fact, Brawl is the game that eventually got me into the series in the first place. Even though I hadn't played much Zelda, I was attracted to the cartoony aesthetic of Toon Link. So when I learned that this incarnation of Link was in Brawl, I was very much drawn to him, and he quickly became one of my favorite characters in Brawl. Sure, at his core, he's basically a clone of Link, but I feel like they made him stand out much more than what they did with young Link in Melee. They really did capture the essence of a cartoony-like character like this. While normal Link was the stoic swordsman and was a bit on the slow side for my liking, Toon Link was expressive, moved quick, and attacked fast, even giving him some attacks unique to him to reflect this. And his power, though clearly not the best, was surprisingly strong. He was just overall a lot of fun to play as. Unfortunately, I didn't exactly play a lot of Toon Link in later installments, though this is mostly due to me gravitating more towards the newer characters in a new Smash game. So most of my fondest memories of Toon Link are only in Brawl, but I will always cherish those memories and appreciate Toon Link's appearance in Brawl for being one of the contributing factors for getting me interested in the Zelda series. The other contributing factor was the demo of Ocarina of Time in Brawl's Masterpieces section, which leads us to... Since I wasn't into the Zelda series before Brawl, most of my knowledge and experience of anything Zelda related came from Smash. As such, I wondered why we even had a younger version of Link as a playable fighter in Melee. But like with a lot of characters in Melee, you kinda just had to roll with it. So, where am I going with this? Well, once Brawl got me interested in Ocarina of Time, I downloaded it from the Wii Virtual Console, and I instantly loved it. It is up there as one of my favorite games. As a result, I gained a connection with the series, and thus gained a connection to young Link. But by this time, we were well into the Wii era, and I wasn't exactly playing Melee. Fast forward to Ultimate, young Link had returned, and since I was now a big fan of Ocarina of Time, you bet I wanted to play as young Link. Most of what I said about Toon Link can apply to young Link. He's a clone of normal Link, but faster. But he surprisingly feels weaker in power than normal Link and even Toon Link. This is most likely because those two Links use the Master Sword, while young Link does not. Even so, I still enjoy playing him. Link and Toon Link have had some minor changes to make them play a little differently than in past installments. But young Link, he feels just like how I remember him playing as in Melee. Quick, nimble, and good at racking up damage fast. But for me, this is a case of I want to play as the character. My soft spot for Ocarina of Time really took over when it came to playing as any of the Zelda characters in Ultimate. I mean, this is the hero of time. Never thought I'd see the day he'd return to Smash. Welcome home, new old friend. Still one of the most jaw-dropping additions to Smash. Prior to his reveal, and even a little after Ultimate released, I never played Final Fantasy VII. Most of my knowledge of Cloud came from videos on YouTube, from things like Screw Attack and other countdown makers, and from Kingdom Hearts. Though my experience with Kingdom Hearts at the time was also very limited, but that's a whole other discussion. Regardless, I knew how famous of a video game character Cloud was, and knew just how big a deal him being in Smash is. And because of my knowledge of the character, I felt like I knew enough to have a connection to want to play as him. And he definitely became became one of my favorite fighters in Smash 4. Because he wields the Buster Sword, Cloud's attacks give him a huge hitbox, but because of the way his attacks come out, you really need to time it right or else you'll be wide open. I know Cloud was annoying for some people in Smash 4, but thankfully, he was balanced in Ultimate. I also like his specials. Blade Beam was a very useful projectile, which, on a sword fighter, this was great. Cross Slash was a good attack to combo from throws. And Climb Hazard, while not the best recovery move without Limit Break, was still a good attack to catch opponents off guard. But let's not forget about that limit gauge. That makes those attacks even better and stronger. And Finishing Touch. All the mind games you can handle. Top it all off with Omni Slash for the final Smash, and Cloud's representation in Smash as a fighter was one of the best. I liked playing as Cloud with the Advent Children costume because, before Sora's inclusion, this was the closest we were going to get to anything Kingdom Hearts related in Smash. I may not be too familiar with his game, but I still find enjoyment from playing him, easily deserving a spot on my favorites list. There were two characters that I played a lot in Melee, and I guess you can consider them my mains in that game. The first of these is Dr. Mario. Now, the GameCube era was the point in time where I became a huge Mario fan, owning several Mario games, mainline and spin-off, from this era. In fact, in the spin-offs at the time, I actually liked playing as Mario, but when it came to Smash, Mario was, how do I put it, the least interesting on the rosters he's on. Sure, he's gotten very powerful in more recent Smash installments, but in Melee and Brawl, he wasn't all that special, still operating mostly exactly how he played in the original N64 game. This was a shame because I really liked Mario and wanted to play as him, and that's where Dr. Mario came in. He was basically Mario, but with some interesting modifications. For one, his attack speed was much slower than normal Mario, but this was made up for by having his attack speed stronger. His side special had much longer reach, allowing for easier reflecting of projectiles, but it came at the cost of not being useful in helping with recovering. The price for balance, I guess. And that Smash attack. While it's very short range, it packed a humongous punch if it connected. Despite being a clone character, Doc was basically the upgrade I wanted normal Mario to be, and that's why I chose Doc over him. Now, I haven't played much Dr. Mario in Smash 4 or Ultimate, but like with Toon Link, that's because I was too busy playing other characters that you'll see later on the list, though I am glad they were able to distance Doc somewhat from normal Mario in later games. But even though I may not play him much now, my nostalgia for playing as Doc in Melee will always hold a special place in my heart. And here's my other Melee main. Like most people outside Japan, Melee was my first exposure to anything Fire Emblem, and thus had no idea who Marth or Roy even were. They were just two sword fighters, unique sword fighters for the time I might add, that played almost exactly the same, but I always gravitated towards Roy mainly for one reason: fire! Yeah, for characters coming from a series called Fire Emblem, Roy was the only one in Melee to actually use fire. And this on top of him being pretty fast and powerful. Of course, despite Roy being clearly the more interesting of the two Fire Emblem reps in Melee, the simple reality was, Roy wasn't the face of the series, Marth was. So when it came time for Brawl, Roy was left in the dust while Marth persisted. I too was saddened that Roy didn't make the cut in Brawl, but then came Smash 4 and its promise of DLC, gracing us with Roy's triumphant return. And this time, he was made a bit differently than how he was in Melee, to make him stand out from Marth. I mean, fundamentally, he's still a Marth clone, but changes to how his moves actually worked made him feel less of a clone. Definitely a lot better than how Lucina was handled in Smash 4. But even with the changes, he was still his fast, powerful self that I remembered from Melee. So you bet I played the crap out of him in Smash 4. I would have said the same for Ultimate, but someone came along and straight up replaced him for me. But we'll talk about him soon enough. Still hoping for a Binding Blade remake someday. Seriously, why wasn't his game released in the West back then, but his father's game was? All we Westerners have right now is Fire Emblem Heroes. Well, at least Smash made us aware that he exists. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's hard to believe now that there was a time when Sonic wasn't in Smash. Can you imagine if he was added to Smash during Smash 4? His reveal probably would have been bigger than Mega Man's and definitely bigger than Sonic's actual reveal in Brawl, which was already big in and of itself. I guess it was good he got in sooner than later. I wonder how broken the internet would have been if Sonic was revealed during the era of Smash 4. Now, I'll admit that, in terms of how good I am with certain fighters, Sonic actually ranks much lower than even previous fighters seen on this list for me. Well, if that's the case, why is Sonic ranked higher than those fighters? Well, the answer is simple. It's Sonic. Just the fact that one of the most famous video game characters of all time is in Super Smash Bros., a Nintendo franchise? Yeah, how could I not love his inclusion? As I said in my top 10 favorite Super Smash Bros. Fighter reveal trailers video, Sonic being in Smash is one of the prime reasons why I'm a Sonic fan today. And just being able to play as him in a game like this is so uncanny, and yet he just fits so well with all these characters. And even if I'm not that good with Sonic, that doesn't mean I hate how he plays. He's actually a lot of fun once you get the hang of him, just running around the place and getting in some free hits. But have you seen the stuff people have done using Sonic? Play your cards right, and Sonic can be a very annoying character to fight. It's pretty wild that some of this stuff can even be pulled off. Yet, even though I can't pull off most of this stuff myself, playing as Sonic in a Nintendo game is worthwhile and rewarding enough. But I do hope in future installments, if he returns, they rework some things in his moveset, maybe giving him moves from Frontiers. I mean, a Sonic with moves from that game would be pretty amazing. Sonic stands alone as the sole third-party fighter to have been in every Super Smash Bros. Game since the idea of third-party fighters in Smash came to be. Given Nintendo and Sega's relationship and Sonic's history in the industry, I'm convinced he's here to stay. This guy should have been in Brawl, but I'm glad they fixed that in the game after and beyond. Like many people, I thought Bowser Jr. would use his paintbrush from Super Mario Sunshine. That would have been a pretty cool moveset, even though that wasn't the case when he debuted in Smash 4. What we got was still awesome. Despite public opinion on Bowser Jr. as a character, to me, he's actually one of my favorite Mario characters. I don't know, he left a very strong impression on me when he first appeared in Sunshine. Glad he wasn't left in the dust and became a staple Mario character, but it is still baffling that it took this long for him to make it into Smash, and even more baffling that he was almost scrapped for Smash 4, but the devs made him work, creating one of the most unique characters in Smash, a fighter in a vehicle, namely his Koopa Clown Car. With all the gadgets in this floating aircraft's arsenal, this made for a varied moveset full of wacky attacks, from buzzsaws to robot arms with boxing gloves, cannonballs, wrecking balls, mecha Koopas, and my favorite moves, the drills. It's all a great time, but if I had to give one nitpick about the moveset, it can be pretty tricky to operate, but that's very much in character for Bowser Jr., since he tends to be a very tricky character in the spin-off games. And let's not forget that he's the first fighter in Smash to have all of his palette swaps be other characters. In this case, the 7 Koopalings. This was a great way of adding more characters without having to fill up the roster with more characters. Of course, I didn't grow up with the Koopalings, so I mainly play as Bowser Jr., but I still love that they did this. Overall, Bowser Jr. in Smash was not what I was expecting, and yet I still love everything that we got from him. People may see you as a brat, but in Smash, I see you as royalty. From one villain to another. January 2008, Brawl releases in Japan, and with it, its full roster was leaked to us Westerners. I remember walking in the halls of my high school when a fellow student who was into Smash saw me walking and said, "Hey, Wolf is in the game!" From there, I would look up Brawl videos on YouTube constantly to learn all of Brawl's contents until the game reached the States 2 months later. So yeah, Wolf from Star Fox finally gets into Smash. And I had played Star Fox 64 and Star Fox Command, yes, Command, before this, so I had a connection with Wolf. So getting to play as not just a new villain character in Smash, but a villain character I knew was a treat. And he quickly became one of my favorite new fighters in Brawl. I just love how he plays. Sure, his specials were pretty much almost the same as Fox and Falco, but it's a case of crafting a new take on the concept of another fighter without resorting to making the fighter an exact clone. And his moves really capture the feel of a feral wolf attacking his prey with vicious moves. Granted, I didn't realize until years later that his moveset was just recycled moves from other fighters, and not just the Star Fox fighters. He was essentially the last fighter added to the game, and added after development on Brawl ended, so they had to take some liberties with his moveset to have him ready for the game's release. But with that said, I honestly didn't notice or care when I played as him because he felt so different from the other two Star Fox fighters. He was the least cloney of the three we had, and since he was one of my favorite new fighters from Brawl, it made it all the more heartbreaking when he wasn't brought back for Smash 4. There was no reason why he shouldn't have been in Smash 4, but given the wonky development of Wolf himself in Brawl, maybe Sakurai wasn't so proud of the way he was made in Brawl to want to bring him back. But that's just pure speculation. But either way, it didn't matter, because Wolf made his comeback in Ultimate with a very reworked moveset. He really did feel like a brand new fighter when I tried him out, but they still retained the feral viciousness of his moves. He may not be my favorite in Ultimate to play as, but I still enjoyed him nonetheless. And with my nostalgia of the character in Brawl, he was going to place very high on my list. You were sorely missed, but it's glad to now see you home. He should have been in Smash 4. And no, I'm not gonna stop saying this. When it comes to potential future characters for Smash, I'm of the opinion that you really need to put in the mascot/poster character of a game or series first before anyone else. These are the characters that are used in advertising all of these games and series, and Smash can further aid in this. So when those characters aren't the ones to get into Smash, but someone else does, it comes off as baffling from a marketing standpoint regarding a particular game or series. I do think some exceptions exist, but for the most part, the logic here is questionable. Apologies if it sounded like I'm complaining, but I bring this up because Chrom has now become a very prominent mascot for Fire Emblem as a whole, so him not being in Smash initially felt, well, unacceptable. I get why he wasn't in Smash 4. Sakurai didn't think he was, quote, unique enough to get a spot on the roster, but considering they put in Lucina, who I knew was going to be a clone of Marth if she got in, I just don't think that was a good reason to not have him playable at the time. Thankfully, Sakurai and his team realized how highly requested he was for Smash, so when he finally got revealed, I was super excited. And I think Ultimate was a good game to give Chrom his chance another day. With the introduction of the Echo Fighter concept, most people, myself included, thought he would fit well as an Echo Fighter to Ike since he was always compared to him. But they subverted our expectations to give us something I didn't know I wanted. They made him a Roy clone instead, but with Ike's up special. You already know I love Roy, so let me explain why I love Chrom even more. 1. I like Chrom as a character enough to want to play as him in Smash. He was one of my favorites from Awakening. Why do you think he was one of my most wanted fighters for Smash 4? And 2, he doesn't have the damage divider on his sword like Roy, so he was basically Roy, but better. And I love that they gave him Ike's up special. Of the new Echo Fighters in Ultimate, Chrom was easily my favorite of the bunch. They took a character I liked and wanted in Smash, and gave him the moveset of another fighter I like. It was a win-win for me, and with Chrom being a big mascot for Fire Emblem today, I don't think he'll be cut from Smash that easily. Hopefully.
If you listen, you can hear it coming.
Smash has had a history of lacking in playable female and villain characters, and while the number of female fighters in Smash has been on the rise ever since Smash 4 thankfully introduced a good chunk of playable female characters, even if many of them were just alts, villains, unfortunately, haven't had it so easy. It was only until Ultimate that we started seeing not just villains, but villains we wanted. But I think we can agree that no one saw the villainiest of gaming villains, Sephiroth, coming into Smash at all. Again, my history with Final Fantasy VII isn't much, and even I knew exactly how iconic of a villain and character Sephiroth was. So Sephiroth in Smash? Yeah, very big deal. He was the villain we didn't know we needed, and after he released, he was actually a really fun character. His attacks are devastating, from the long reach of his sword with his normal moves, to the destructive power of his specials, and this is only further amplified with his winged form. They really captured his essence here. It's like I'm playing as a boss of a game. My only gripe with Sephiroth is his weight. Or rather, his lack of weight. If you aren't careful, Sephiroth will get sent flying off screen in an instant. But he was already incredibly strong, so he has to have some kind of crutch to keep him from being overpowered. Sure, we could go for more villains in Smash in the future, like Dr. Eggman, but for now, I'm content with what Ultimate gave us. And I think, for many, Sephiroth was the highlight of villains in Smash. He's iconic, he's powerful, and best of all, he was the first second addition to a third-party franchise in Smash to not be a clone. Yeah, Sephiroth is great. The cool thing about Smash Bros. Is you get to learn a lot about Nintendo's very long history, and just like with Fire Emblem and Melee, you may even be introduced to things that never left Japanese shores. And now that I've said that, it's pretty clear who I'm gonna talk about. Earthbound was one of those series that wasn't exactly that accessible for a long time, only becoming more easily available in recent years. As a result, my knowledge of Earthbound was restricted to what was in Smash, and it wouldn't be until Brawl when this series got more love with the introduction of Lucas, the main protagonist of the Japan-only Mother 3.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3! How about this instead?
One of these days, they're gonna give in and give us what we want. Until then, Lucas and Smash will have to do for now. And do for now he did. When he was revealed on the dojo, they explicitly stated he was from a Japan-only game. At the time, this detail made Lucas an interesting pick. Because he was from a Japan-only game, I wanted to know more about him, but knew Smash would be the only place where I could find out. Thankfully, Smash has done a good job giving us the gist of Mother 3 and Lucas through the trophies, stickers, Lucas's role in Subspace Emissary, and of course, Lucas as a fighter. Like with Wolf, Lucas is a perfect example of taking a previous playstyle and reworking it to give us a completely new take on the playstyle's concept. If you've played NES, you'll know the basic functions of Lucas, but the way he actually attacks, especially his normal moves, is distinct from NES, so I can't exactly say he's a clone. The other thing I like about Lucas is his use of PSI. Unlike Ness, who uses the equipment from his game in addition to PSI, Lucas mainly uses only PSI in his moves, the only equip item in the moveset being his stick. This design choice made Lucas actually feel like a seasoned psychic user, and in some ways, felt a lot stronger than Ness thanks to the frequency of the PSI in his moves. Like with Roy, I was sad that Lucas didn't return in Smash 4 initially, but thanks to DLC, Lucas came back and became one of my favorites in that game. Here's hoping he remains in Smash in future installments. Wow, 4 villains graced the list? Guess that just means they went with some good villain picks for Smash. Once again, the Donkey Kong series leading villain ranks high on one of these lists. And can you blame me? Every aspect about this fighter is perfect, from his amazing reveal to how he plays. They faithfully recreated a lot of his moves he used in the DK series, making him one of the best Smash incarnations of a character. I'll be honest, I didn't know if I'd enjoy him as much as I do since he was a heavyweight, a fighter class that I don't usually play. But once I picked him up and played him, he instantly became one of my favorites. It's crazy just how insanely dumb some of his moves are, like his down smash, standard special, and especially his satisfying to pull off back air. And because he's a heavyweight and thus can take a lot of hits and live, well, he's not broken, but it's borderline ludicrous that he has these kinds of moves and traits in his kit. But that's what makes him such a fun character. Add in his funny and whimsical expressions and animations, and you've got a fighter that you'll enjoy playing no matter if you win or lose. I may not have played much of the DK series, but this is a character I can't help but love thanks to Smash. This may have felt like a short segment, but I really don't know what else to say that I haven't already said about him. I love how he plays, I love his personality, I love his final smash. He's such a great addition. Welcome aboard, Jakroc. Here's hoping you're here to stay. As you may know, I am a big advocate of newer games and series getting represented in Smash with new fighters, and when it came time for a new Smash entry on Switch, there was only one inclusion that was a definite must. Inkling from the then new IP, Splatoon. Why do you think Inkling was so high on people's wish lists for new fighters for a potential Smash on Switch before it actually happened? As a big Splatoon fan, this was pretty exciting to not only see that Inkling made it into Smash, but they were the first to be confirmed, and they were confirmed before Ultimate itself was confirmed. Have I told you March 8th, 2018 was a good day? So, how's the fighter themselves? Well, you know by now that Inkling was one of my favorite newcomers from Ultimate, so of course they'd rank pretty high. Their moveset was pretty much what I expected, using various weapons from the series throughout the moveset. Of course, since Splatoon is all about inking turf, they translated that into Smash as inking your opponents for stronger hits. And trust me, you have no shortage of ways to inking your opponent. Just be mindful of your ink supply, or else you'll find yourself yourself in a whole heap of trouble, what with the majority of your attacks becoming practically useless. Yeah, there are some attacks that don't require ink that you can use, but you're more or less at a disadvantage without ink. Then there's Inkling's personality in the game. Since Inklings are all about being fresh, they reflected that with all of their animations and especially all of the different designs for the alts. Splatoon got no shortage of love in Ultimate, and it deserved it. Splatoon has grown a lot as a series since 2015, that it's become one of Nintendo's big players, even for just having only 3 games. So I'm confident Inklings are here to stay, should we get a new Smash game in the future. Maybe we can finally get some Octolings in on the action? You know what we want, Nintendo. What a miracle. I knew Sora was a long shot for Smash, what with the whole Disney situation that came with him, but surely Square Enix and Disney knew just how highly requested he was, and considering all the big names entering the fray in Ultimate, this was the time to put him in. If I had known Ultimate was going to be the game that it became, I would have placed Sora higher on my original 2017 list, despite the very slim chance he had. I never wanted to give up hope that one day he would appear in Smash, and he has, and he plays so great. Honestly, keeping it simple while still translating his playstyle from Kingdom Hearts into Smash was the best way they could have done it. It's like I'm playing Kingdom Hearts in Smash, and since he plays like he does in Kingdom Hearts, a game series where aerial combat is everything, Sora's air game is insane, possibly one of the best in the game. Seriously, aerial sweep into Sonic Blade? It feels like it shouldn't exist, but his lightweight is a very big weakness. Too many hits, and he's gone. But with the tools at his disposal, from magic to counterattack to hurricane blast, you should be fine. It's so surreal to finally learn the true results of the Smash Bros. Fighter ballot. The reason for not revealing it is justified, but I was always curious to learn that it was Sora, the biggest impossibility for Smash, who won the whole thing, and they used that to end Ultimate? It is mind-blowing that this even happened, and it is one of the best full circles I've ever seen. Will Sora ever appear in Smash again? It's hard to say. If Disney and Square Enix want to, then it's very possible. For now, there is one thing I'm certain of. A reveal of this caliber can never happen again. Oh sure, there are still characters that would have a huge reaction if they got into Smash someday, but ask yourself, is it really gonna top the Disney character getting into Smash? Thank you, Sakurai and team, for giving us the best finale that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate could have ever had. Well, how am I going to get myself out of this one? My opinions haven't changed. I still think the fan demand for Palutena for Smash 4 at the time was very annoying, but that doesn't mean I hated her inclusion. I did like the character in Kid Icarus Uprising, so I had a connection there to want to play as her. In fact, when Smash for 3DS released, there was a point where I was looking for a new character to try out that wasn't one of the ones I was maining in that game. And I came upon Palutena, so I played her, and I was very shocked to find that she was actually a lot of fun to play, even if her base moveset wasn't competitively viable at the time in Smash 4. Sure, she had some weak points during the Smash 4 era, but there were others where she shined. I found Auto Reticle to be a good projectile attack, great for stunning and spacing. Her Reflect was also very good, though I can understand why they would combine it with her Counter in Ultimate. It was a very spammy move in Smash 4. Counter is counter. Not much to say there, and her up special was kinda janky, but usable. But what I really like are her smash attacks and air game. Her forward and down smash attacks create a wind effect that pushes the opponent, providing another spacing tool. But her up smash is incredible. It's powerful and has a long vertical reach. As for her air game, it was surprising just how good some of these air moves were, to the point where they were pretty annoying, and she only got better in Ultimate. Sure, her whole gimmick was a customizable moveset in Smash 4, which would then be removed in Ultimate, but I was fine with that. I still enjoyed the character regardless. Seeing as she's the titular character for the Kid Icarus series from a Japanese perspective, she's pretty much here to stay. I would like to see other Uprising characters get in someday, but for now, I like what we got. By now, you might have noticed that we have yet to see my favorite newcomers from Ultimate on the list. Bet you didn't expect them to be this high up. But if you're a long viewer of the channel, you might have also noticed that a certain Angel Doppelganger has also yet to appear on the list. Yeah, it's boiling down to Dark Pit and Pyron Mithra. Did my Smash 4 main crash the party at the top spot? Or did the Aegis claim first place from under his nose? These final contenders represent characters that I like from their respective games that I really wanted playable in their respective debut Smash game, and each became my mains in those Smash games. So yeah, they were going to be at the top. Just like last time, I'll go over each fighter individually, this time going in reverse fighter numerical order, followed by Ultimate's victory screen to reveal the results. Let's do this. Still can't believe they made it in, and I got practically everything about them right. Sure, they are just another switchable character, something we've seen a few times in Smash already, but again, it's the take on the concept that makes it unique. Pyra and Mythra feel like Zelda and Sheik fully realized. They both essentially have the same moveset, apart from their specials and their final smashes, so if you play one, you can play the other, but their properties and characteristics help them both stand out from the other. Pyra possesses super strong attacks that can instantly kill, and she can take a lot of damage and still live. Mythra is a much faster character, capable of racking up damage quickly and using her speed and foresight dodge to evade attacks, but her lightweight makes her easy to KO. Basically, Pyra represents power, while Mythra represents potential. See what I did there? But it all boils down to how you use their talents depending on the situation. They have their upsides and weaknesses, but both complement each other. So, if one isn't working out in a given situation, try the other. As I said before, I really wanted a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 fighter, and while I initially wanted Rex and Pyra, right before their games even came out, I might add, I'm super happy with the fighters we got, as Pyra Mythra was the best alternative. I mean, they are the focal point of Xenoblade Chronicles 2's lore, so it kinda had to be them if the main protagonist wasn't the one to get in. Remember when I said exceptions to mascot poster characters getting into Smash? Yeah, that. I've sung of this guy's praises many times on the channel, and I'm not stopping now. Now yes, fan demand for a new Kid Icarus rep for Smash 4 went to Palutena, and while she was a fine choice, she was still a character that originated from the NES game. I wanted an Uprising original character to make it into Smash 4, and of the potential choices, I asked myself who I really wanted, and I settled on Dark Pit. He left a strong impression on me, being an anti-hero with a lot of presence in the game, more so than most of the other characters, and was very unpredictable with his agenda. Of course, I understand why people didn't want him playable and didn't like his inclusion in Smash. He practically screamed clone character, which is what eventually happened. Now, I know he could have definitely been made to be his own unique character from Pit. Simply give him the Dark Pit staff as his main weapon and bam, new character. But even though they didn't go that path and went with the clone route instead, I was still happy he actually made it in. I honestly didn't care that he was a clone, as this is another case of I want to play as the character in Smash. Now, as a clone, he doesn't have much different from Pit. His only distinct differences are his neutral and side specials, and that's actually a deciding factor for me regarding the Angels. I can't use Pit's neutral special to save my life, and his upper dash arm felt wonky. Now Dark Pit, I can actually get behind. His arrows, while moving at a much slower speed, were easier to control and did more damage. As for his side special, the electric properties and the diagonal trajectory made this a very powerful killing move. With the advent of Echo Fighters and Ultimate, if they want to continue the idea, I'm certain Dark Pit is here to stay. I really hope that's the case, because I don't want to see him gone. Not to mention Echo Fighters were so underutilized in Ultimate. They barely scratched the surface with the idea. Sure, it's more clone characters, but it's a way for certain highly requested characters to get in. I see that as a win-win, so why should they stop now? Now it's time to come to a verdict. Who is my all-time favorite Super Smash Bros. Fighter?
Looks like I'm the last man standing.
Yep! A clone character is my all-time favorite fighter. Like I said, these are characters that I like from their games that I wanted playable in Smash. Either one of these fighters could have flip-flopped places on the list, and I would have been content. I just enjoy them in Smash that much. But for me, Dark Pit just felt like the proper choice for the top spot. For one, I've had more time and experience with him in Smash, so nostalgia took precedence here. Second, while both of these characters seemed like they had some obstacles to overcome to become playable, Dark Pit is a playable fighter with his own slot, and not being an ult was the bigger long shot of these two. Cause really, I didn't think it could happen, but it did. But the third and big contributing factor for putting Dark Pit at number 1, looking back at the history of my channel and how much I bring up Dark Pit, really shows how much he means to me, both as a character and especially as a fighter in Smash. Really, I was pretty obsessed with Dark Pit during the Smash 4 era. I get that Dark Pit is frowned upon by the community for being a quote, waste of a slot, but for me, being able to play as a character you like and want playable in Smash is something truly special. So I didn't really care too much about him being a clone, even though I knew there were ways to make him his own own unique fighter. Sure, it's very likely that if Pyra and Mithra return for a future Smash game, they just might dethrone Dark Pit on my list someday, but that day hasn't come yet. So for now, as it currently stands, Dark Pit claims victory as my all-time favorite fighter in the Super Smash Bros. Series. I'm Chaos Key, and with that, Smash Bonanza Month comes to a close. I want to thank you all for coming to this big event with me, looking back at a series that I hold so dear. I want to especially thank Wambu for joining me on the collab for this project. And lastly, I want to thank Masahiro Sakurai and Nintendo for creating such an amazing game series where we get to see all of these gaming icons come together like this. Now, of course, this doesn't mean I'm done making Smash videos. I do have some ideas for Smash videos that I'd like to make in the future that didn't make it here, so be on the lookout for those whenever they happen. To close out, I want to end Smash Bonanza Month with a special tribute to the series and all the fighters that got to join this incredible crossover of worlds. Until next time, see you guys then.
Shadows, silence grows in the spaces to a spot.